Would you risk the world to save someone you love? Well, that is the exact question that Barry Allen must ask himself in Justice League The Flashpoint Paradox. What is up, my fellow cinephiles and movie geeks alike? My name is Chris, and in this video I will be breaking down Justice League The Flashpoint Paradox, the first entry into the DC animated movies universe, or the DCAMU for short. With that being said, let's get right into the movie. And needless to say, there will be many spoilers ahead. Adapted from the 2011 Flashpoint comic book series, this movie explores themes of change and the lengths people may go to in order to save the people they love. This movie opens with a young Barry Allen and his mother broken down on the side of the highway. She discusses a saying her mother taught her, that being to accept the things you cannot change, have the courage to change the things you can, and the wisdom to know the difference. This quote will go on to be very important throughout the movie, but more on that later. In a separate scene, Barry goes home to find his mother dead on the floor after their house was broken into. In the present day, a now adult Barry Allen visits his mother's grave on her birthday, accompanied by Iris West, his wife. Barry speaks out loud, admitting that despite all his power, he still couldn't save the one person who mattered most. This scene not only establishes Barry's unresolved grief, but also his sense of personal failure and his temptation to change the past. This is before he does anything, and that's intentional to kind of get you inside the head of Barry Allen, to know what he's thinking at any point in time. However, before Barry can do anything too rash, he's interrupted by emergency alert. His rogues gallery is mid-heist. Included are Captain Cold, Heatwave, Captain Boomerang, Mirror Master, and Top. Barry dispatches of them easily until Professor Zoom, or Reverse Flash, appears. Here, he admits he orchestrated the attack. The rogues were just a distraction to lure Barry Allen out. Bombs are planted throughout the museum, and if they were to go off, they would destroy 10 of the surrounding blocks. However, Zoom's goal isn't really destruction, it's psychological warfare. He taunts Barry of his mother's death, his inability to change fate, and the idea that Flash's legacy can be erased. The Justice League arrives and saves Barry from a lethal attack, and the bombs are stopped, but the damage is already done emotionally. Barry leaves shaken. It is in this moment, reeling with grief, he runs back in time and saves his mother from dying, causing ripples throughout the timeline that not only affect the lives of Barry and those closest to him, but the entire world. However, upon waking up in a now altered world, Barry represses this action, having no memory of ever going back in time, only to be confused by this new world he finds himself in. He quickly realizes that things are very different. He has no powers, his mother is alive, and Iris is married to someone else, and that is only the tip of the iceberg. The film briefly cuts to Gotham City, focusing on Batman, who in this world is much more brutal and unforgiving. Cyborg arrives, attempting to recruit Batman as part of his resistance against a war that is being waged between the Atlanteans and Amazonians, more specifically their respective leaders, Aquaman and Wonder Woman. Batman refuses though. Coming back to Barry, he breaks into the Batcave looking for his friend Batman, Bruce Wayne, only to find that this world's Batman is none other than Thomas Wayne, Bruce's father, who it is safe to say is not his friend.
Who the hell are you?
Barry attempts to explain his situation while being interrogated by Thomas. He tries using his ring to summon his uniform, but instead it's Professor Zoom's suit, leading Barry to believe he's behind the changes to the timeline. Thomas agrees to help Barry change the timeline back to its original state, in order to ensure that Bruce is the one who lives instead of Thomas. We cut to New Themyscira, once known as the United Kingdom, where Colonel Steve Trevor attempts to retrieve Lois Lane, who is working secretly to gain intel for Cyborg. And she is also the object of Steve's admiration, which in this context is kind of funny, considering in most other adaptations, he and Diana are the ones romantically involved. But clearly not here, as she kills him. Lex Luthor and Slade Wilson travel to Paris, which is now taken over by the Atlanteans, and are attacked by them. We see here the brutality they are capable of, and the powers they possess. These two scenes help to establish that the two sides of this war are equally powerful and destructive, and the devastation that could mean for the rest of the world. Barry attempts to regain his powers by creating the accident that first gave him his abilities. At first it doesn't work, leaving Barry badly burned by fire and chemicals. However, upon realizing that his memories of the original timeline are fading, he tries again. Luckily this time it works, and Barry has his speed back, once again becoming the Flash. We flash back to various points throughout the Flashpoint timeline. First we see a spaceship crash landing on Earth, which you may be able to guess holds a baby Kal-El in it. On the shores of Themyscira, Aquaman and Wonder Woman shake hands, among other things. Driven by jealousy, Aquaman's wife Mera attempts to kill Diana, instead resulting in her own death, kickstarting the war between the two nations. In Crime Alley, a child Bruce Wayne is shot to death, and Thomas beats his killer to death, but the toll it takes on his mother is much more severe, becoming this world's version of the Joker. Additionally, we are introduced to a device that the Atlanteans are in possession of that could wipe out the entire world, which is powered by none other than Captain Atom, who was a member of the Justice League in the beginning. Meanwhile, the Amazons chase Lois Lane around New Themyscira. Fortunately, she's saved by none other than the Reverse Flash. Back with Barry and Thomas, Barry remakes his suit, changing the colour scheme of the one Thorn gave him to the iconic red. Realizing that Thorn's presence in the timeline is limiting Barry from going back in time, he and Batman try to find Superman in this world, who they believe could be capable of travelling through time and stopping Thorn. They go to Metropolis and meet up with Cyborg to find him, having him hack into the government system in return for Batman joining his team. They track down Kal-El and rescue him, only for him to immediately fly off. Hal Jordan, an Air Force pilot, is recruited to fly an alien spaceship. He tries to attack the Atlanteans, however that goes about as well as you could possibly imagine. Batman and Cyborg bring Flash to the house of Billy Batson and his foster siblings, who combined are the hero Captain Thunder. They tag along and all of them go to the front lines, where the battle between the Amazons and the Atlanteans are about to kick into high gear. Whilst on the plane to the UK, Batman discovers intel of Thorn's stunt saving Lois, which was yet another ploy to draw in Barry. Now firmly in the middle of a war zone, they are shot down and thrust into battle. Captain Thunder goes toe-to-toe with Wonder Woman, while Batman, Cyborg, and the Flash take on Aquaman. They all take beatings and are about to lose, when Thorn reveals himself, telling Barry the truth, that it was indeed Barry who created this timeline. Meanwhile, Wonder Woman bests Aquaman in battle and kills him, but not before he can set off his bomb, dooming the entire world. Before everything is destroyed, Batman shoots Thorn in the back of the head, stopping him from siphoning the Speed Force, allowing Barry to now run fast enough so that he can go back through time and fix his mistake by letting his mother die. This now comes full circle with the quote his mother gave him in the beginning of the film. Despite being physically able to change the past, he now has the wisdom to know the difference between things that he can and cannot change. In the same way he woke up in the Flashpoint timeline, Barry now wakes up back in his original timeline. A calendar in the background shows it's October, which, as I discussed in my full timeline analysis, is how we know this takes place before the other movies in the DCAMU timeline. Barry visits the Batcave once again to find Bruce carrying the Batman mantle once more, who he discusses his adventures with, and leaves him a letter that Thomas Wayne left for Bruce before he and the rest of the Flashpoint timeline died.
You're one hell of a messenger.
And that is the end of the movie, but we do get a short post-credit scene showing parademons invading Earth, which will take us directly into the next movie, Justice League War. Now, being the first movie, there aren't too many connections I can make without spoiling things for the future movies, but one thing I will mention is that the final scene where Barry wakes up and gives Bruce the letter is set after Justice League War. Now, when considering the comic book that inspired this movie, it actually follows it quite closely. Quite a number of members are left out of the Resistance. Most of them are background characters though, so they don't contribute too hugely to the story. So it's not surprising to leave them out in favour of having more well-known characters. Additionally, the flashbacks to the origins of each of the Flashpoint versions of the Justice League were not actually in the comic book and were created for the movie. I do think that it was a good change, especially in the case of Aquaman and Wonder Woman, as it provides context to their feud. Finally, as with any adaptation, there are of course going to be certain changes to character designs, dialogue, and other stylistic elements in order to better fit the medium it is created for. All in all though, a very faithful adaptation of the Flashpoint comic, and a very fitting start to the DCAMU. Now, without spoiling things too much for the rest of the DCAMU, I will just mention, remember that the Flash is able to change the past. Anyway, I've already said too much, but that is it for this video. So if you did enjoy, and want to be notified on the next installment of this rewatch series, do be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you are able to watch it as soon as it comes out. And of course, if you did enjoy, leave a like and share this video with your friends. But until next time, this has been Chris, and I'll be seeing you.